All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our travel experiences. My name is Kyle Rasmussen. I'm your host. Today, I thought it'd be fun to just kind of talk about some of my travel experiences. I think as I plan ahead for this podcast and where I want to take it, I think it'd be really exciting to every so often just kind of share some of my experiences, share some tips, tricks, things I've learned over the years during my travels, and that's really what my goal is to help others with their future travels, and so I think getting to hear a number of different perspectives, not only from different guests, but from me, from people that maybe haven't got to travel or haven't traveled very much, and just kind of see all sorts of the spectrum when it comes to travel. So, as some of you may know, I have been to what I would consider 23 countries outside of the US. Two of those places, Hong Kong and Taiwan, are disputed. That right now they're under Chinese control, so I don't know if they're really considered separate countries, but nonetheless, I count it. But I've been to, again, under my count, 23 countries. I've been to, at the time of this recording, I've been to 39 of the 50 US states with two more new ones lined up. So I'm excited for that. So I have gotten to travel a lot. I spent about 6 months, just under 6 months, in Sydney, Australia, studying abroad when I was in college. So I've gotten a lot of different experiences. I've lived in a few different states over the years. I left my hometown for college. I moved about 1,000 miles away. So I've gotten a lot of different experiences when it comes to travel. Also, when it comes to traveling on my own versus in a group, I've done those things as well. And so I feel like hopefully I bring a broad perspective when it comes to travel. So today I was just going to talk about a few of the travels that came to mind, and answer some questions that I typically get when I travel, or when people ask me about my travel experiences. So first, I'll start with what I would say is my favorite trip. People always ask me this when the conversation comes up around travel. They ask, "What was your favorite place you've been to?" And honestly, that's such a hard question to answer, because so many places are so different from each other. There's so many unique places out there that it's really hard to compare and say, one's better than the other. I will say though, my answer typically is when I went to New Zealand. So New Zealand was, during my time when I was studying abroad in Sydney. I went in the spring of 2016. Yeah, spring of 2016, which for the northern hemisphere, that is springtime going into summer. For the southern hemisphere, that's fall going into winter. So when I left for Australia, I actually left. I believe it was like mid-February of 2016, sometime around the middle of February, and so it was essentially wintertime here in the U.S. And it was kind of interesting to go to the southern hemisphere and have it be the middle of summer. I went to very different very different climates, very different weather, um, in just a matter of days. So that was a big change. But going back to New Zealand, so during my studying abroad time, we had essentially like a fall break um, for schooling, and so I had about a week off plus the weekends, and so I had about 7 or 8 days that I could travel, and then I actually the way my classes worked out, I actually had a couple more days, so altogether it was about 9 or 10 days that I had to travel. And so I was obviously looking to explore, and so I wanted to go to New Zealand. I, from what I knew at the time, New Zealand was, fairly similar to Australia. I knew it was unique in that, um, basically you could have every sort of climate or every sort of landscape that you wanted to in just a matter of hours in New Zealand. It's not a very wide country, so you could go from east to west or west to east and cover, each coast in one day, probably much less than that. um, and so the mountains and the beaches, they're all, somewhat close together. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in New Zealand topography, but um, it's kind of interesting how everything's so close. You can get pretty much anything that you want it on any day. So what I did on that trip, and I actually really loved the way that I did this. I flew into Auckland, New Zealand from Sydney, and Auckland is at the northern end of New Zealand. Now, New Zealand has two big islands, the North Island, the South Island. Um, Auckland is at the top of the North Island. And Auckland is a big city. It's fairly similar to Sydney, if any of you have been there. It was very similar to a lot of places here in the U.S. too, in that it was a big city. It had different attractions in it. It had some hills that you could climb. It had everything that you can imagine in a big city. And so I started my trip there. I had a few days in Auckland, and a lot of the time that I was there in Auckland, I actually just kind of walked around on my own. I had an agenda of what I wanted to see, what I wanted to do. So I spent a lot of time walking through the city. It's very, very nice climate. When I was there, at least, had really nice weather. Not too hot, not too cold. The city, I believe, is very walkable. There's lots of good sights that you can see just walking around, and it was a really good one of my favorite cities in the world that I've been to. I did one day take a bus tour around the city. Because I was looking to get to a lot of different places and learn more of the history, the background of the city. And so one day I did actually take a bus tour around, went to a bunch of major sites in the city. And that was actually a really great way to get around, to get to see a lot of the highlights of Auckland in just a short amount of time. And it was a lot of fun. I met some great people on that trip and got to see a lot of sights. And I'm happy to share more about that with all of you if you're interested. But for now, I'll kind of skip through that there. One of the things throughout my trip in New Zealand, which this I had forgotten about this, but in New Zealand, Australia, the meat pies are a big thing there. At least I thought so. Some of them are higher quality than others. A lot of times, though, you'll see them at gas stations or maybe in the supermarket. And it's essentially like, some of you might have had a chicken pot pie. You could have something similar to that in New Zealand or Australia, but a lot of times they're made with minced meat. and maybe some cheese. I always got the cheese with it. So not maybe the highest quality of meat or ingredients, but they were so good, and they're very inexpensive. But just little little pies. Maybe a couple inches in diameter. A good meal for one person. And you could get different meats and cheeses and whatnot inside of them. And so in my 9 or 10 days in New Zealand, I had a lot of meat pies, and I definitely for a long time I really missed having those once I came back to the U.S. I got used to eating them in Australia and New Zealand, and I still do miss them. They were really good. Again, not the highest quality, but they were quite good. So if you're ever there, I definitely recommend at least once or twice getting a minced meat pie there. I also had a lamb one, which was quite good. That was that was at a restaurant, and that was a much more higher quality, I would say. It had lamb and vegetables and different things in it. But that was a bit of a sidetrack there. So anyways, traveling through New Zealand. So I was in Auckland for a few days. I just stayed actually in Auckland. I stayed at the YMCA. A lot of YMCA's around the world will rent rooms out. So that's a tip for people that are looking to travel on a budget potentially. YMCA's can be a good place to maybe get a cheap room if you're looking for that. Same thing with hostels. Hostels are great, especially if you're traveling on your own, which is what I was doing at the time. I stayed in hostels throughout that entire trip. Didn't spend more than maybe a couple $100 altogether on 10 days of traveling for lodging. And so that was a really cost-effective way to get around the country. And honestly, a lot of hostels out there are very nice. Some of them are nicer than some hotels in a lot of cases. The only thing is that if you're looking for the really cheap room in a hostel, just know that you're basically living the dormitory lifestyle. You're going to be sharing a room with a bunch of strangers. But honestly, it's not too bad at all. A lot of people are really friendly. It's fun to meet people from around the world in the hostels, and it's kind of a good little community. And as long as you bring a lock, every place is going to have a spot where you can lock your things up. So that's an easy way to travel, and it's honestly not too bad at all. If you're traveling with a family, though, definitely would probably not recommend that, though. So anyways, I was in Auckland for a few days, and then what I did is I took a bus tour. I took a bus tour from Auckland, and we ultimately ended up in Rotorua that day. So Rotorua, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It's a small place, small town. I would say like maybe halfway, or not even halfway. It's still pretty far north, on the North Island, but it's a little ways from Auckland. It was essentially like I would say probably 7 or 8 hour trip, but we made a few pit stops along the way. So that was actually a really fun way to see the countryside of New Zealand, which is incredible. I definitely recommend driving or taking a bus or doing something to be able to see just the landscape of the countryside of New Zealand. It's probably no, I would say it's definitely the prettiest country that I've been to in terms of natural beauty. But yeah, so we made a few stops along that way on that day when I was traveling to Rotorua. I remember going to what's called Waitomo Caves, which is one of the few places in the world. I believe there's only three places, and that's one of them. Waitomo Caves, where you can see glowworms. The glowworms hang out of the ceiling, essentially of the caves, and it's pitch black in the cave there, and you just see these little blue. It looks like these kind of bluish stars hanging from the ceiling. And if you turn the light on, you can see that it's a long worm that's hanging out of the ceiling. But just an incredible experience to be able to see that. One of the most unique things that I've seen or done during my travels, for sure. And I highly recommend that if you only have a few days in New Zealand, you're flying into Auckland. That's not very far from Auckland to go see those. Probably a few hour car ride or bus ride, but well worth the trip. Just absolutely incredible. Something that you're never going to find here in the U.S. or really anywhere else around the world. So we did that. That was awesome. And then we actually went to the Agro Dome, which was also really unique, I would say. It was really fun to kind of learn a little bit about that history and see what that was like. So the Agro Dome is essentially a place where they show people or tourists how they shear sheep, and kind of learn about the whole sheep farming process. And so we got to see the guy that was there. He sheared a sheep for us, and it was it was incredible how fast he was able to do it. I can't remember all the facts and figures now at this point, but some crazy numbers in terms of how many pounds of wool they get, how often they shear, how fast they shear them. It's pretty wild. So that's definitely well worth the trip as well. But they also, one of my favorite parts of that day was getting to see the sheepdog actually herd some sheep around. It was incredible to see how well trained that sheepdog was. She followed every instruction that the guy was telling her. She took the sheep through all these different obstacles, took them all around this little yard that they were in, and brought them right back into where all of us were standing that were on the bus tour. And it was an incredible experience to be able to see that as well. One of the fun facts, which I probably am getting this wrong now. Again, it's been almost 6 years since I was there. But it was something like there's 3 times as many sheep as there are people in New Zealand. Hopefully someone fact checks me on that. But I thought it was a really interesting statistic to to learn that there's way more sheep than there are people there. And they actually try to breed the sheep that have twins. And so actually a lot of the sheep that are in New Zealand are actually twins. And a lot of times, a much higher statistic than you might think, they actually have twins. And it's kind of become this genetic thing that they've bred into the population. So obviously, because it's going to be basically a 2-for-1, you're going to get more money out of it, that sort of thing. But pretty crazy there. That's one of the great things about traveling is you learn so many unique facts and just totally different ways of life. You learn all sorts of interesting things that you're just not going to get if you stay in one place. So that's one of my favorite parts of traveling, is just really learning the history of the place that I'm in, getting immersed in how society in that place got to where it is today, and what kind of unique things there are about that place. Sorry, I'm gonna pause here to take a drink really quick. Um, so after the Agrodome, we got into Rotorua. The Agrodome's not too far away from Rotorua, if you guys are kind of following along on the map. But Rotorua, really, really cool town. I wish I could have spent more time there. But one of the unique things about Rotorua is there's a bunch of hot springs, and a lot of, I guess, New Zealand in general. There's a lot of geological activity. I know they have lots of earthquakes, especially on the South Island. The earth is very alive in New Zealand, and so one of my uh, most amazing experiences I've ever had traveling in any of the places I've been to was we went to, and I'm gonna forget the name now. I believe I'm gonna look this up actually really quick because I want to get this right. I believe it's Tay. Yeah, Tay. How do you pronounce this? I don't see a pronunciation. Tepuia, I believe. It's TE space PUIA. It's just outside of Rotorua. But Tepuia is essentially a cultural heritage place. Hey everyone, sorry, quick pause here. I'm about to talk about the Maori people, the indigenous people of New Zealand. I just wanted to throw this in here because I'm about to pronounce it wrong. After I recorded, I realized I was pronouncing their name wrong. So, anyways, enjoy. Of the indigenous Maori people, the Maori are the original people of New Zealand. A lot of the names, like Rotorua, I believe, is from the Maori language, and that's where you get the haka from. The chant that we see the All Blacks New Zealand rugby team do, and now many people, or many teams, many people have copied it around the world. But the haka, the kind of intimidating dance / chant that teams do before the big game. And so I went to the Tepuia and learned all about the Maori people. Learned about how, the the British in the British kind of took over their land and everything, and just kind of the relationship now between the Maori people and other New Zealanders and or Kiwis, as they like to be called. And so it was really interesting just to learn, the indigenous history there, learn about their culture. And actually, we did get to see a Kiwi there. They had a couple Kiwi birds that were there inside the complex, which that was pretty amazing to see because they're somewhat endangered species. I believe they are an endangered species. And so it's pretty rare, especially because they're nocturnal. It's pretty rare to see a Kiwi bird. And so that was really interesting. But my favorite part of that was getting to see the Maori people do their traditional dances, their traditional chants, and that sort of thing. And when they did the haka, they got all of the men out of the crowd and we got to go up there and perform the haka with them. So that's an experience that I'll always have. It's one of my favorite memories. Is I actually got to do the haka with the people who invented the haka, and I believe I have it on video somewhere. But that was amazing. I again, if you have a chance to get out there, totally recommend going there. And if you're a man, you might have the chance to go do the haka with the Maori people, with the Maori men. It's a war dance, is what it is, meant to intimidate the opposing side, and so they only the men do that as well. But that was an incredible experience. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of geologic activity. So inside of the Te area were some hot springs where you could smell the sulfur, which you can smell the sulfur all throughout Rotorua, throughout the whole town. It's pretty overpowering, but it's amazing to see the hot springs right there, see see the mud and the sulfur and all the hot water bubbling out of the ground. And so you can get a lot of different experiences just in that one little area there. And again, it's not too far away from Auckland. I'd probably say if you wanted to spend a day there and then go back to Auckland in the morning, that's definitely a possibility. Let's see what else in Rotorua. So I stopped for the night in Rotorua. That was the end of that bus tour, and I spent the night in Rotorua. Walked around the town a little bit. Nothing too exciting on that front, but I stayed in a great hostel again. It was very nice, very clean. Definitely no complaints, and it was cheap. So, being a college student, that was great too. And so then from Rotorua the next day, actually, I took another bus tour. I can't remember the company. I'll have to find the company that I took. Hopefully they're still in business. But anyways, I took a bus tour from Rotorua, and we actually went all the way down. It took an entire day, but went all the way down to the bottom of the North Island to the capital city of New Zealand, which is Wellington. It's at the very bottom of the North Island. I think, driving straight through probably something like a 10 or 12 hour drive, maybe. Maybe not that much, 7 or 8. But that was again just beautiful to see all the countryside, see the different landscapes, and see just the incredible natural beauty of New Zealand. And that's the thing that stuck out to me the most. There is just how naturally beautiful New Zealand is. You could take pictures forever of every landscape and never really get a full sense of the beauty. There's just so much beauty there. So that wasn't a very exciting day, though. We were in the bus most of the time. I remember stopping at one town, which I don't remember exactly where it was along the trip, but it was just a pit stop. It had a nice little cafe there, and like I mentioned, it was getting into fall and winter when I was there, and so all the leaves were changing colors, and it was just a really beautiful area. And then ultimately we got to Wellington, and I spent the night there, and actually spent a couple nights in Wellington. Wellington is the capital city of New Zealand, and there's a lot of great history there. I took a bus tour one day when I was there, going around to different points around the city. I know there's one spot which I believe was Mount Victoria. Looking it up right here. Yeah, Mount Victoria Lookout. On the top of that lookout, there is a sign that shows how far away you are from Antarctica, and that sort of thing. And that was pretty amazing to see as well. We don't really think much about Antarctica, especially here in the U.S. But it's pretty crazy to just realize that. I think at that point I was closer to Antarctica than I was to my home. So that was pretty pretty wild for me, I guess. I like that kind of thing. But yeah, I went to Mount Victoria. Let's see, where else did I go? Also, shout out to Google Maps, because Google Maps is awesome. This is one of the things I do for fun is look at Google Maps. Yeah, I went to the Wellington Botanic Gardens. That was very pretty. The Cable Car Museum, took the cable car up the hill from the city of Wellington up onto the hill. That was pretty great to see as well. You can see the whole city below you. I can't remember what else was on that trip. We just kind of went around, saw the sights. The bus driver told us the different landmarks and history behind them. And then I spent another day walking around. Went to the Museum of New Zealand, which was incredible. That's a great museum. Highly recommend it for anyone going. Get a really good sense of the history of New Zealand. You can see the Beehive. The Beehive is where it's the political or the government building, essentially what would be our Congress here. It's their parliament. That's where they meet, is the Beehive. And what else did I have here? Yeah, I just ended up walking around the city a lot. Took in all the different sites. There was just so much to see, and a lot of good restaurants, a lot of good places to hang out. Had some meat pies, and it's a beautiful city. Definitely recommend it as well. If you don't want to drive too, it's an easy flight from Auckland as well. Or if you end up driving and you want to fly back to Auckland or get out of, fly back to the U.S. or somewhere else, Wellington's a good place to do that as well. But what I did is I flew out of Wellington and I flew to the South Island and landed in a place called Christchurch, which is towards the northern end of the South Island, not all the way to the north, but it's on the east coast of the island, right on the water there. And it was about an hour flight, I think, from Wellington. And that was a really cool town. Actually, before I get into that, sorry, this is a long ramble. Hopefully this isn't boring for all of you. It's fun for me to relive this and share this with people. I usually, I don't obviously share this in this much detail, so it's fun to kind of relive this a little bit. The Cook Strait is what separates separates the North Island from the South Island. The Cook Strait is the body of water between the two islands, and you can take a ferry across as well, which I would have liked to have done. I think if I go back, I will do that. But it can be very dangerous. It's not, I've been told that it's not the most safe passage of water in the world. And so if you get seasick, probably don't recommend that. But I think it's something that's worth doing if you have the time. So that's something I'll probably do when I go back, hopefully in the near future. So, anyways, I flew to Christchurch. In Christchurch, going back to the kind of geological activity, Christchurch unfortunately has had a lot of earthquakes over the years, and they had had one fairly recently, uh, before I had been there. I think within a few years of me being there, and so a lot of the unfortunately the main church, or cathedral, um, there in Christchurch, part of it was ruined by the earthquake, um, and it was sad because it's a very old church. I think from dating back to some of the first settlers, and so really sad to see that. But Christchurch is a beautiful town. A great park. I believe it's Hagley Park or Hagley Park. Great place to walk around and just kind of see the nature in the town. They also have the Canterbury Museum. That was a great museum to see. Give some history of the area. There's another. Let's see. There was another. What was the other place I went to? There's another museum which was awesome as well. Shoot, I can't remember. It was the Canterbury. I thought there was a different one. It must have been the Canterbury. Okay, never mind. It's hard, especially having been to so many museums. It's hard to keep them all straight, but no, good history there in the Canterbury Museum. Great park to walk along if the weather's nice. And one of the cool things that I found there was, because of the earthquakes, they had trouble with building buildings. And what they did actually was they built a mall, essentially, like a strip mall kind of thing, that was made out of shipping containers. So it was really cool to see these, 1 and 2 story high shipping containers. Essentially, they had, a couple were stacked on top of each other, but there's a lot of different, mall or stores that you would see in a normal mall, in this little area with shipping containers. So I thought that was pretty unique. I definitely have not seen that anywhere else. But it was kind of cool to see this modern mall essentially that was made out of shipping containers. And there was a nice little food truck park there as well. Definitely a cool place to spend a few hours. Let's see what else there. I didn't get to do much there. I didn't have a ton of time. Definitely would have liked to spend more time. Would have liked to spend more time in New Zealand in general. That's a place where I could spend probably months and months traveling around. There's a lot to see and do there. And again, it's beautiful. But from Christchurch, I actually, sorry, I'll pause here. Okay. From Christchurch, I took another bus tour. These are all with the same company. And we went to all across the South Island, to ultimately Queenstown, which is towards the bottom of the South Island. It's not all the way to the coast, but it's Queenstown is the adventure capital of the world, I believe. It's a really cool town. Kind of sitting on this lake, getting into the mountains of the western part of the South Island of New Zealand. But Going across the South Island was an incredible experience. I know we stopped at let me find the right lakes here. Yeah, we stopped at Lake Tekapo. Um, didn't spend a ton of time there, but the the beauty of it was just astounding. The water comes in from the glaciers off of Mount Cook, which is the major mountain there in New Zealand. It's a very famous one. Um, the water is almost white. At least when I was there, it was very light blue, very cold, and there's a lot of lupins, these pretty flowers all around, and it was just you have to see it. If you're on the South Island, you have to see it. It was so beautiful. It it almost makes me emotional even thinking about it now. How beautiful that whole day was. So from there we went to a little place. Let's see, where was it? Um, so we didn't go up to Mount Cook, obviously, but oh yes, there we go. We went to the Mount Cook, the village and the visitors place. It's up along the which lake? This Lake Pukaki. Pukaki, I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry for everyone, I'm butchering this. But we went up there, which that lake was beautiful as well. Same thing, it's fed from Mount Cook. But we went to the visitor center here, the village, where you can spend the night, and I definitely recommend spending a night. I really would have liked to hike around below the mountain, in that area. If I had more time, I would go back and spend a day or two just in that spot. A lot of beautiful hiking trails, and seeing Mount Cook and what they call the Southern Alps, standing high above you. It was a pretty incredible experience. But the big kind of history behind it is Mount Cook is what Sir Edmund Hillary climbed to prepare for Mount Everest, and Sir Edmund Hillary was the first man to climb Mount Everest successfully. And so there's a statue to him, and some explorer, like an explorer museum or history center there, that you can check out. So definitely recommend spending a couple days there. But that was pretty amazing to see as well. Again, the beauty is just out of this world. And then from there we continued west. You get up kind of into the high altitude in New Zealand there. Christchurch is very low altitude, it's right on the water. And then we just kind of climbed into the high altitude, the high mountains. The landscape's very different. Weather's very different. It's a complete change just in a few hours. And so from there, we drove down and ultimately made it to Queenstown. And that's where I spent the last couple of days of my trip, was Queenstown. And Queenstown's a cool little town. Again, very touristy area for sure, but lots of great shops, great food. I had some ice cream there, which was awesome. Some good ice cream, and lots of beautiful places to see there as well. I know I spent a full day essentially walking around the downtown area, looking through the shops. Going through what's called Queenstown Gardens, which is a nice little essentially park or garden in the along the water there in Queenstown. And yeah, that was a great spot. Again, wish I would have had more time there. But the fun part there was one of my big I guess like not regret, but my big wishes that wasn't fulfilled traveling, and also one of my best experiences traveling, both took place in Queenstown, and both for the same reason. So Queenstown, like I said, is the adventure capital of the world. I think it's where a lot of the adrenaline sports started, including bungee jumping. So originally, the wish that I didn't get to achieve was um, I didn't get to go skydiving. I had been planning for skydiving for weeks. Um, I was really nervous for it. I wanted to I wanted to do it once and essentially never do it again. And I thought, what better place than Queenstown, where it's all about adventure and adrenaline. And so everything was going fine. I went to the place in the morning where we were supposed to meet the bus. Filled out all the paperwork, had gotten everything done. I had already signed up for it weeks in advance, and they took us out to the where the plane was gonna pick us up, um, to the pickup site. And right when we got out to the pickup site, they said, "Hey, the weather's not good. We can't do this today." And so I was super bummed, but I was like, okay, I'll try to make it work a different day, or a different time. But unfortunately, everything was booked, and I wasn't gonna have time because I had to fly back to Australia, and so it just it wasn't gonna work to do skydiving. Um, so I said, well, I got to do something adventurous, something adrenaline here. And turns out one of the first places where bungee jumping was started, or I think where it was started, is just outside of Queenstown. And so I signed up to go bungee jumping. And so I ended up getting to do that afternoon. I jumped off of this bridge. I think it was, what was it? I think it was 120 feet, 140 feet, something like that. I think it was about 43 meters. So yeah, about 120, 130 feet. But again, it was fall, almost getting into winter time when I was there. So it was in this kind of canyon, and this bridge went across the canyon, and there was a river that was below, and all the trees were changing colors, so it was very colorful, and nice to see. And um, I still to this day I think about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But I got all strapped in. They just kind of tie your feet together in a way, and he said on three, jump, and so I jumped, and it was an awesome experience. Actually, the worst part of it was because I went down kind of face first. I wanted to, or kind of, I was feet first, but I was looking at the ground. Um, but then you bungee back up a little bit, and so I got turned around and was facing back towards the bridge as I was going up, and then I started falling again, and that was the worst part of it, was falling again when I wasn't necessarily expecting it, and I couldn't see where I was falling to. But it was a lot of fun. They lower you down, and you get unstrapped in a little raft. There's a couple guys waiting for you at the bottom. And so I remember I had to unstrap myself from the little harness, and I could barely do it because my hands were shaking so much from all the adrenaline. But what an incredible experience! Again, that's a story that I get to tell forever. Um, I don't know if I'd do it again, but definitely recommend doing it at least once if you're there. It was a great place to do it. So that was a high level overview of my trip, or maybe not. Maybe that was a little too detailed for some people, but There's so much there, so much in New Zealand, so much beauty, so much to do. Everything that you want is fairly close. Um, the one thing I didn't get to do, which I would have really liked to, but I needed another day or two at least, was to go to the Milford Sound, which is a beautiful area in this very western part of the South Island. Beautiful mountains jutting out, and there's a big sound, Milford Sound, that is an inlet from the Tasman Sea, which is the water that is between Australia and New Zealand. Definitely would have liked to make it there, and I hope to make it there someday in the near future. So we'll see. But all in all, really great trip. Highly recommend New Zealand. If you have like a month or two that you could spend there, that's the way I would go. I would rent a car, or take the various bus tours and just take your time really getting through the country, seeing all the sights, not trying to speed through everything. I spent 10 days there, and I could have spent 10 months there. So New Zealand, that was my favorite place I've been to. Obviously I can talk a lot about it. We're coming close to an hour here. But well worth it. So many great memories, so many great experiences. Met a lot of great people, and just have a lot more appreciation for life after that trip. So I still always look back on it with fond memories. Since that did take a while to go through, I'm not gonna dive into a lot of questions right now, but if any of you do have questions, please reach out to me. You can email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. You can also, I believe you can leave a comment on Spotify or the Anchor app. You can, if you know me, you can reach out to me in other ways. But I'd love to hear from all of you. If you want to be on this podcast and talk about your experiences, I would definitely welcome that, and would love to have you and live vicariously through you about your experiences, from your experiences. So please reach out. I really want this to be a fun community, be a fun place for people to hear stories, to share their stories, and to really be inspired to see the world. I really believe that seeing the world makes us better people, makes us more appreciative of what we have, for sure. And for me, it's made me a vastly better person than I would have been otherwise. So I'll have more stories in the future. That was just one place I've been to. I'll have to talk about some other places in the future, but again, thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting this podcast. And I hope to talk with you all soon. Have a good one, everyone. Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always listen to other episodes on Spotify or Anchor. The links are in the description below. If you want to see travel pictures from today's guest and other guests, as well as my own travel photos, you can see them on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. If you want to share your own travel pictures on the page and or share your travel experiences on the podcast, you can message me on that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to hear about your travel experiences and see all the beautiful pictures that you've taken. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I look forward to sharing the world with you again soon.